And good evening. It is 5:30 here on Monday, October 19th. My name is Ryan Belmore. I am the owner and publisher of What's Up Newp. And what I'm going to do is bring our guests on. We have Len Katzman, who is a current Portsmouth Town Councilor. He's also a candidate for Portsmouth Town Council. Good evening, Len.
Good evening, Ryan. Thank you very much for hosting this.
Of course. And we can break down some data that just came in. Rhode Island Board of Elections has this really cool tool where they're updating voter turnout, and you get updates twice a day, and the total for today is just coming in, and across Rhode Island, 51,830 Rhode Islanders have already voted, which is a great number. Huge mail-in ballot day. There was 18,918 mail ballots processed today. But when we look at Portsmouth, which is what you care about the most right now, 793 have voted early at Portsmouth Town Hall since last week, and 60 mail ballots have been scanned. 853 total votes coming out of Portsmouth so far. Big number.
That's great. Yeah, I encourage people to vote early. Vote by mail if you've requested the ballot. If you have the ballot, send it in early.
That's it, and it's remarkable for all, and we're going to get to it a little bit, but all the drama happening in Middletown and Portsmouth races, more people have voted in Portsmouth than either one of those towns so far.
That's funny.
The number in Newport is 755 total, and the number in Middletown is 650 total. So pretty funny. Len, for people that have just moved to town, voting for the first time, paying attention for the first time, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us your background.
Sure, happy to. So I was born in, well, I was going to say Portsmouth, Newport Hospital, technically, but born here in Portsmouth, 1958, and grew up here. I'm a proud 1976 graduate of Portsmouth High School, and I went to URI for a year out of high school, for no particular reason other than that's what you do when you get out of high school is you go to college. And so because I wasn't particularly motivated, I did not do well that first year. I was invited to go play elsewhere. And I had a fair amount of wandering about. I played in a rock band up in Maine for a few years. And as I got older and a little more mature, I realized I was making decent money, but I was working 7 days a week for it. I had no health insurance and I had no personal life. I was just traveling, playing, and music. I decided I needed to take responsibility for myself and step up, and I went back to URI and I got my degree in computer science. Graduated in 1985 in computer science degree, and went to work. I found work here in my hometown. While I lived in Portsmouth for a bit with my folks. Bought a house on the other side of the bay because I couldn't afford to buy a house here. And then I was working in the servicing the Naval Undersea Warfare Center enterprise in private industry. And I worked in doing computer work based. I was a software engineer, systems engineer, and a systems administrator. That career spanned 15 years. I did embedded systems code and Fortran code, and I was an administrator for a supercomputer facility, high performance computer facility up at Newark, a Cray computer for my computer geek friends. But the thing is, I went to college and decided on computer science because I knew I needed to find reliable work. The truth is, I didn't love it, and after 15 years, actually after about 10 years, I decided the thought of doing this kind of work, staring at a blue screen and coding hours a day, didn't provide me with enough interpersonal human connection to be fulfilling. And I had fallen out of love with technology, and I decided I needed to make a career change. So again, I took responsibility for myself. I decided to step up. And Roger Williams University School of Law had become accredited just a couple of years before I decided to go to law school. So I worked at Newark during the day, went to law school at night, and studied on weekends. Graduated third in my class. I'm proud of that. And then had a career change. I went to work at a large Rhode Island law firm doing intellectual property business transactions, counsel to businesses running technology-based companies. I really enjoyed it. That sort of the thing I didn't like though was the selling. Lawyers have to sell their services.
Yeah.
So I started to look after being at Partridge Snow and Hahn for 7 years. I looked for something like an in-house counsel position where I would have one client and serve those needs. And I was hired by Brown University in 2007. I've been there ever since, still there. I'm Director of Business Development. I help the inventions that come about through the research Brown find their way into private industry through licensing and transactional business contracts. And it's very challenging work. And let me back up. That's what I do for a living. In the course of growing up now as an adult and having a home here in Portsmouth, I was finally able to buy a home back here, raising my son here. I started to pay attention to what was going on in town. Back in 2004, the town council then cut the school budget by $500,000, big chunk of money to cut from the budget. But they didn't do it to save the taxpayers any money because they took that $500,000 and put it on the town side of the budget to pay for the things that they had to worry about. And they were not conducting meetings well. They were yelling at each other during meetings. It wasn't just bad priorities, it was bad government. And this thought came over me that if I don't step up again to take responsibility and step up, then out of control councils would continue. So I threw my hat in the ring. I got elected in 2004. I served 2 terms. I've been involved in politics ever since. Most of that time I've spent finding other people to run, trying to talk to residents and find out what their needs are and what their interests are. And the first thing people say when I tell them, so, have you ever thought about running for school committee? They laugh. They think it's a joke. Then they realize I'm serious because we need good people to step up and run. And so I've spent a lot of time advocating at the local level for the town and for the schools, and also up at the State House for issues that matter to folks here in Portsmouth that go up there, and I testify on I have testified on various issues all the time. I was elected again to the town council in 2018 and have been honored to be able to serve another term. I'm asking for another term. I like to think that one of the things I bring to the council, as well as whatever specific initiatives I might be interested in, is to make sure all decisions are made based on facts, rational reasoning, civil discourse, and good, transparent, open government.
Now, Len, my joke has been, and I got to make sure that I bring it up with every Portsmouth Town Councilor or candidate, is, there were originally 18 people running in Newport for 7 seats, 19 people running for 7 seats. There were 18 running in Middletown. There are 18 running in Middletown. There's only 8 running for 7 seats in Portsmouth. Is that a tip of the hat for the great job that the current council is doing?
Of course.
Pretty much the same answer I've gotten from everybody.
So, obviously, it's frankly, it's puzzling. Portsmouth typically gets into the teens every cycle. A full slate of Republicans and Democrats and a handful of independents. So you do that and you're up into 15, 16, 17, 18. This is very typical. Why this year? No one other than the incumbents plus one additional. So we have a full slate of Democratic Party candidates running. Only one Republican filed. Why? I honestly don't know. I do think that it is a number of things. One is yes, we are doing well. We're doing a good job of being responsive. We're being keen to the things that people say they want and trying to find a path forward to do it, which is very difficult because we have limited resources. If you want to do something big like a have a community center or fix our crumbling buildings, that might require a bond, and these things take time and care. So one of the things is, yes, we're doing well, I think, for the residents of Portsmouth. Another thing that may have been a factor is the COVID-19 pandemic. There are lots of voices in town who may complain about town government, but to have to actually make some of these hard decisions, especially on the school committee side, to be responsible for running operations during a pandemic, it may be easier to sit on the sidelines and throw darts than to throw your hat in the ring and try to do something about it. So that might be a factor.
You mentioned school committee a couple of times, and I just want to make a point because I know it's out there that the town of Portsmouth is looking for volunteers to throw their name in the ring for the open school committee position in Portsmouth. So yes. While we have a second, I just want to bring that up.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, a member of the school committee resigned. There are 2 years left of that term. And so this is an opportunity for someone who has a particular interest in being responsible for the operations of what the school committee covers. Yeah.
Let's stick with schools and see if I can pull off this segue. Okay. One of the reasons that many people are running in Newport and running in Middletown is because of all the school drama, regionalization, unification. How close are you watching that? And are you watching that? Any opinion on it?
I'm watching it. Of course, I'm watching it from the perspective of a Portsmouth Town Council member. We were approached, as you may know, by the city of Newport. Colleen Germain, superintendent, came and made a pitch for us to consider participating in some fashion in whatever their endeavor is in regionalization. We responded by official vote. We're open to listen. We'll talk. But I think all of us were fairly clear in saying that Portsmouth is not interested in actually regionalizing with Middletown and Newport. The reasons for that are that this topic of Portsmouth becoming part of an island-wide regionalization school department has been studied and looked at. And while there might be benefits to Middletown and Newport regionalizing, the study, I believe it was done by RIPEC, if you're familiar with the organization, the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council, determined that for Portsmouth, it was actually a detriment, that our students would have longer ride times, for example. The costs to Portsmouth taxpayers would increase under a regionalization plan. So we had no cost incentive to do it, and it wasn't better for the students. So nothing has fundamentally changed since that study was done. And so we're certainly interested in supporting sharing of resources. And we do, regionalization means a lot of things. It's a catch-all phrase. The truth is we have many cooperation agreements in place with Middletown and Newport for various services, and including in some education elements as well.
Len, what do you see, think, or hear the priorities are for yourself as a re-elected, hopefully, town council member in the 2 years ahead?
So, with the caveat that there's a fair degree of uncertainty right now, because the greatest crisis you face is the one you don't know is coming. We simply don't know. There's a significant degree of uncertainty right now in terms of how long will the pandemic last? What eventually will the state budget be? And what will the impact be to Portsmouth? So there's a lot of unknowns. And so one of my priorities is to, through it all, maintain calm, civil, rational decision-making through the crisis, and that people should be able to have confidence that with everything that's going on, at least Portsmouth town government is being well run, well cared for, and you're in good hands. That's a priority of mine. We should be deliberative, not reactive. And that's how I approach almost everything. I think that's why my legal work is so good. And I'm not selling anybody. I'm not trying to sell my services because I'm not in private practice. So, but listening to people is the first thing you have to do to know what any action should be. So we've set aside some money in our budget just as a contingency because we don't know what may come. I'm fond of pointing out there is a state law that says the General Assembly should fund local education equally with the municipalities. 50% of our school budget should come from the state. In exchange for that, there's a tax cap that they impose on the towns. We get barely over 10%, if that, of our funding from the state. So if the state were to provide 50% of our education funding, we could do great things. We could have better roads. We could have better services. We could have a community center. We could address all of our infrastructure needs. But that's not the case. The case is that we're basically on our own for education. And that puts such a crimp on our budget. I intend to continue advocating. I'm with our local legislators and with Governor to understand what the constraints are in education funding, which I know I'm running for town council, but I want to be clear, the education budget is the lion's share of the budget. It's more than half. And so for every dollar that goes to education, that means there are things on the town side that we can't do because we don't have the funds. So to free up education dollars, because the state is finally providing their fair share, is important. So the state education funding formula is something that I'm very interested in continuing to advocate for. I want to make sure I stay on topic. What was your question again?
It was just priorities in the next 2 year, in the next term.
Sure.
And you're right there. Yeah.
Sure. So continuing to focus on education, supporting. One of the reasons people move to Portsmouth is the quality of our schools and the quality of the environment and curriculum. I had my son in private school. He was at St. Michael's in Newport through middle school. And when we were looking for high school options for him, we ran all over the state looking at various private schools. And we decided on Portsmouth, thankfully, because it was paid for by my taxes. But it was the best option for him. It offered the kinds of content and not only the substantive curricular content and the extracurricular activities that I think make for a well-rounded student. So preserving education is something I continue to champion.
Len, obviously, whenever people vote, however people vote, you want them to fill in the dot next to your name. But when they flip it over, they're going to see one statewide question and then 12 Portsmouth questions. A lot of the times we've talked about this, I'm going to use the word housekeeping. A lot of the questions are a little bit of housekeeping on the chart. But is there anything on those 12 questions that people should know about or info that you want to share?
Sure. So some of it is, like you said, housekeeping. I support, I recommend people to approve all of the local questions. The changes that are substantive, like going, for example, from 5-year requirement to a 10-year experience requirement for a fire chief, those were things that were deliberated at some length with input from the fire chief and the other things like that. So these are things that will make the town better run. And to the extent there isn't much on the charter changes, a lot of them are to comply with state law. The language is out of date. There was a charter review committee 8 years ago, and there was a charter review committee, I believe it was 8 or 10 years before that. So some of the really big questions have already been addressed. So not letting the town council sell public land without it going to bond to a ballot question, for example, that was done 8 years ago. there were fewer big items left. But that doesn't mean that we should not continue to review and revisit our charter periodically and make changes. So most of these changes are not particularly
exciting.
Well,
I can use that word. You probably can't, but
I was trying to think of it. Contentious.
Yeah.
It's all exciting. The truth is, when things are quiet and it seems like it's boring, that's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
We don't want excitement out of town government.
Len, are there any topics, issues, points that we didn't get to in our very quick conversation that you would like to bring up? Is there anything that we missed?
Just really quickly, on town facilities. We did a survey which indicated there's a significant degree of support for something like a community center where we could have all kinds of activities. The one place that is sort of kind of used as that now is the Portsmouth Multi-Purpose Senior Center, the old Ann Hutchinson School building. And when I say old, I mean old. The second and third floors are not usable, not even for storage. And the first floor will as of the end of next June, be closed as well. The state fire marshal, not our local folks, the state fire marshal says we can't use that building anymore. So we need a solution. We need to figure out, either just on our own or perhaps in partnership with other communities or other private entities in a public-private partnership arrangement, to be able to figure out how to provide services people want. People want a place where they can have their exercise classes or their, gatherings and meetings and events. And Portsmouth deserves a nice place for that. The current facility where the senior center organization meets, those folks deserve a better place than that. And how we get there from here is going to take some care and heavy lifting, and will probably result in a question on the ballot next time around, or possibly at a special ballot election. Post a bond, pay for it.
You don't need to look far to see what a good example is over at Common Fence Music and how they use their community hall for classes and music and events. So I have confidence that you guys can pull something around. Len, if people want to get in touch with you for more information, to chat, questions, how could they get a hold of you?
So my email address is leonardkatzman@gmail.com. You can use my Portsmouth Town Council email address. If you forget, you can look me up there, but just leonardkatzman@gmail.com is the easiest way to get a hold of me. You can also look at our Portsmouth Democrats website. It's portsmouthdemocrats.com, where you can learn a little bit more about me and all of our other Democratic Party candidates running for Town Council and School Committee.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate it, and we wish you the very best of luck in the upcoming election. It's one unlike others where people have already, 853 have already voted, and we're 2 weeks out. So it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, but wish you the very best of luck.
Well, it's probably going to be an interesting couple of 3 or 4 weeks.
Just 2. Let's just keep it 2. But really wish you best of luck. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us tonight, and we'll be seeing you around town. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
All right. So I want to thank Len Katzman for joining us. If you want to rewatch this video, share this video, go back and listen to something. The video is available on whatsupnewp.com, on our YouTube channel, as well as on our Facebook page. If you want to see any other candidates' videos, you can also go to whatsupnewp.com and look for our video voter guide on Portsmouth Town Council. Coming up tomorrow, we are going to dive back into Newport School Committee, as well as Middletown Town Council. And we have interviews lined up all week. So sign up for our newsletter on whatsupnewp.com. And every morning, I try to keep you in the know of who I'll be chatting with, who I'll be interviewing on the day ahead. So thanks for watching.